I don't know if you're familiar with DJ Enright. He was a rather good poet and also a critic and a novelist, and he wrote quite a good novel of Siam called Figures of Speech, and also some reminiscences of his time in Singapore. They're included in something called Memoirs of a Mendicant Professor. It's very good stuff. Anyway, Burgess met up with DJ Enright in Singapore on his way to Australia. And he notes in You've Had Your Time, being the second part of the Confessions of Anthony Burgess, that they were discussing the trip being made by Burgess and Liana to Australia, and Enright said of Australia, "You've been to worse places." Well, Burgess writes in You've Had Your Time that
this was an understatement. This was the country for young Andrea to grow up in. Bare brown toes splaying on the beaches under the sun.
I should explain that Andrea, or Paulo Andrea, was Burgess's stepson. Burgess was quite interested in the women of Australia.
Marvellous
women, he said, in contrast to the men whom he described as
terrible, pot-bellied chauvinists, totally asexual. The men simply don't know what sex is.
He goes on,
Australian women are well-built and beautiful. They have to be in that climate and on that protein-stuffed diet. If they were gauche, aggressive and dissatisfied, it was all the fault of the men, who were disinclined to woo and considered the sexual arts dirty. At parties, I noticed, the sexes remained separate, the women discussing dress and obstetrics at one end of the room, the men content with beery mateship at the other. The comparative indifference of the men to the women was summed up for me in a restaurant. A very beautiful waitress with sumptuous long legs exposed in a miniskirt leaned over a table to collect a plate and displayed those legs to the limit. Only I was unholily moved. The rest of the male diners went on stolidly with their tucker. What sexual culture was to be discerned among Australian men seemed derived from literally camp situations: work, army, prison. Les girls, men who put on a transvestite show, were pure army or prison concert party. The homoerotic was sublimated into mateship.